Hey you! Yeah, I'm talking to you. You like honey? This ooey gooey delicious golden brown amber? Well, did you know that it's made by Italians? These Italians didn't make it, and definitely not this guy. It's actually the Italian honeybee. This honeybee is one of the most common types of honeybee in the world, and in this video we'll be taking a closer look as to where they come from, why are they so popular, and even some negative things about them. So sit back, relax, and learn a little bit about these beautiful bees. So, buzzing right into it, the Italian honeybee, also known as Apis mellifera linguistica, evolved in the northern region of modern-day Italy, just south of the Alps. These bees have been here since the European Ice Age 16,000 years ago. Since then, the Italian bee has been used in various places around Europe, primarily in warmer climates close to the Mediterranean. It was in this region during the Roman Empire that these bees became popular. Due to the Roman influence, they were able to take those Italian bees and spread them across Europe and across the Mediterranean. As seen above, this was one of the common types of beehives during the Roman era. They took a cord building and they basically made segmentations in the wall, and they placed these clay-type beehives to where the bees would basically just live in and fill it out. They also used typical woven hives that they would do the traditional method with. Both of these methods would involve them killing the bees in order to collect the wax and the resource. Going back to bee expansion, these bees eventually found their way to North America in the mid-1800s. They quickly became the dominant bee, surpassing the German bee, also known as the black honeybee, which was introduced more than 200 years earlier in the 1620s. The earliest records in North America indicate that these German bees may have been brought on the initial Mayflower voyage to Jamestown, but the first official record was from a ship traveling into Jamestown in 1622. Alright, German side story is over. Back to the Italians. Italian bees arrived in the US at the same time the Langstroth beehive started to become more popular. This new modular hive allowed easy construction of hives and easy expansion. This new beehive birthed a larger scale commercial beekeeping and started the search for the prime bee to go into these new hives. It didn't take long for the Italian bee to be used and adopted by the rest of the world. Given all the backstory in the Italian bee, now we have to ask ourselves these questions. Why were the Italian bees chosen? What makes them so good? Why were these bees so easily favored by the rest of the world and so easily adopted in different situations? Well, there are three primary reasons as to why they were so well perceived and so successful. One of the first and biggest positives is that these bees have one of the highest honey yields and the highest wax yields. Universally accepted as being one of the highest producers in both honey and wax. This is largely due to their very good foraging nature. They are very good at going out, being productive, getting large amounts of pollen and nectar, and coming back to the hive and storing it. Another benefit alongside this is high wax yields. They definitely know how to put together a hive, take those resources and put it to use, leading to a larger hive where more resources are being used efficiently. This is the primary reason as to why they're so sought after during commercial beekeeping as well as personal use. Another reason these bees are so heavily favored is because of their docile nature. They're very easy to work with and they are very easy to inspect. So due to the Langstroth hive being so popular, it's important that the bee that goes with it is okay with the deeper hive inspections. It doesn't get as agitated with people going inside the hive. This again makes the Italian bee one of the most ideal types of bees going into the Langstroth hive due to this docile nature. The Langstroth hive requires large amounts of taking apart and deeper hive inspections. Another great thing about these bees is their low tendency to swarm. Generally, a beehive will swarm whenever things are going bad, whenever there's not a certain element they need nearby, whether it's water, pollen, nectar. These bees will typically try to stick around and make the best out of their situation, which makes them less prone to swarming than other bees. Additionally, with this trait, they are much easier to split because they are much more willing to make things work over trying to run away and find a better location. Now, these bees are great and everything, but they are definitely not without their downside. Even though they've been adopted by a large variety of people in a large variety of settings from a commercial to private, some of the primary issues go to the higher maintenance demand than other bees. Starting off, these bees do have increased yield, but along with some of their traits, they also are very high consumers of their honey storage during winter. So generally, if they have a bad season during that spring or in the fall or summer, then you will need to be monitoring that in order to be ready for their overwintering, just so you're ready to feed them and make sure that they're doing okay. So generally, they're overwintering, they'll go through their food way too fast, and you'll just have to keep a little bit of an extra eye on them. So another issue with that is during the winter, they will additionally have a very large population of bees compared to other bee variations. So right off the bat, we kind of have a double whammy of overwintering issues. We have a very large population, and we have a very high tendency to consume that honey. And they'll typically try to run through it as fast as possible, but they do have the benefit of being very productive. So they will produce a lot of honey, but that also falls onto the beekeeper for allowing the bees to keep enough of their storage for winter. So if you have Italian bees, you typically want to make sure you have a bit more than as you would for other beehives. Although when it comes to teaching, the Italian bee has become a standard. So you can actually take this at looking at other bee types and be, oh, I don't need to overwinter as much, although this is really just taking into account maybe 1 or 2 frames difference. So generally, you want to be on the safe side and follow what the general metrics are. Because Italian bees typically have a harder time overwintering than other types of bees, they'll actually have the ability to have a less successful spring due to a slower startup. Generally, what can happen is that these Italian bees will start growing their population too fast before its proper season. So they will basically have a higher rate of consumption than what they have to go out and fetch. And there's not enough nectar in their local areas in order to feed their growing populations. So what can actually happen is after overwinter, early spring, you can actually have Italian bees starving because they started rearing brood way too early. Now, the last and probably one of the bigger issues that I personally have with keeping Italian bees is that Italian bees are more sensitive to different mites and diseases on average compared to other bees. So generally, these bees need to be inspected more often so to make sure that they aren't having these disease and pest-related issues. This goes back to their docile nature. They aren't as efficient as expelling out pests like moths or beehive beetles, so they rely on our human input to fix that. But that docile nature does mean that we're better at doing inspections, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. These bees are sought after for a reason, and they're sought after for their production. Just because we require more human input doesn't mean that they have a decreased yield. They definitely have the best ability for producing the most honey, but that does come with the cost of higher maintenance. We've talked a lot about Italian bees today on this channel, and in the future I plan on making a video for each specific race of bee. I'll generally be focusing on European honeybees for a while, but I would like to expand a little bit more and look at the Australian honeybee and look at some of the Asian honeybees, just because bee culture over there is quite different, just because the bees themselves are genetically very different. Hopefully in the future go down some different paths, but early on in this channel, those are kind of things I want to focus on. I'll probably create a decent number of videos related to that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps out with the algorithm and help get this channel going. Please leave feedback on these videos. I appreciate all criticism. I understand that certain things in this video might be contradictory to what others may believe, what others may have looked up. There is a lot of bee culture that is very contradictory to each other when it comes to this kind of research. I've seen a wide variety of things during my research on these, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd also like to hear if you have any specific bee that you'd like me looking into, or any specific topic that you'd like me researching for future videos. I appreciate all criticism whenever it comes to video making or anything like that. I'm currently working on these projects purely for enjoyment. I really enjoy beekeeping. I enjoy the research behind it, and I truly believe that most beekeepers are generally very scientific. They love to learn, so I just thought this might be a good idea to kind of pursue and kind of turn a bit into a hobby. Once again, thank you for watching all the way through, and I really appreciate you, and have a beautiful morning, day, and evening wherever you are.